Hi class!
How are you today?
That's great! Alright, the learning target for today is to solve systems of equations with substitution. So in the last video, remember that the learning target was to solve systems of equations with substitution when a variable is solved for you. So in this lesson, we're going to go over all the kinds of solving equations for substitution. And the examples we'll do today don't have a variable already solved for you. And you're going to have to solve it and then do substitution in the way we've been doing. Let's get started. Alright, so in here we have x minus 2y equals 14 and x plus 3y equals 9. So the first step in substitution is to solve one of the equations for a variable. So we want it to say x equals or y equals. So we pick one of the equations, it doesn't matter which, although oftentimes one is easier than the other. But in this case, I actually think both of these have equal difficulty. So both of these, notice, they have just an x here. So both of these will be the easier ones to solve. So we want to solve for x. Sometimes you might end up solving for y, but in this case, x is easier to solve for. So either of these equations will work, it doesn't matter which. I'll just go with the top one. So rewrite the top equation, and we say x minus 2y equals 14. Now we want to solve for x, so we want to undo what is happening to x. So if it's minus 2y, we add 2y to both sides. So we say x minus 2y plus 2y equals 14 plus 2y. We add 2y to both sides, and that'll give us x equals 14 plus 2y. And if you want to say 2y plus 14, that's perfectly fine. We've been putting variables at the beginning with graphing, so if you want to do it that way, be my guest. So now we've got x equals 14 plus 2y. And what I like to do is, let's put a box around this, because this is going to be very important. So now that we have the x equals 14 plus 2y, we go back to the equation that we didn't use, which was x plus 3y equals 9, and we plug 14 plus 2y back in for x. So we take the equation x plus 3y equals 9, and now rewrite it. Instead of x, we say 14 plus 2y plus 3y equals 9. See what we did there? Instead of the x, we wrote 14 plus 2y, and then we wrote the rest of the equation. Now we can combine like terms, and we can say 14 plus 5y, because 2y plus 3y is 5y, equals 9. And now we want to solve for y. So to get y by itself, we need to subtract 14 from both sides. So we say 14 plus 5y minus 14 equals 9 minus 14. So I'm running out of room, so I'll put that back to the top, so we'll go back over here. So On the left side, we're left with just 5y because the 14ths cancel out. So we have 5y equals, and then 9 minus 14 is going to be negative 5. So then we divide both sides by 5. And we get that y equals negative 1. So that's one of our answers. Remember, we need two. We need both y and x. So this is where we go back to the equation we put the box around. I said it was going to be very important, and it is. X equals 14 minus 2y. This already has x solved for us. So this will be the easiest to bring y back and plug in negative 1 for y to find x. So we rewrite the equation. X equals 14 plus 2y, but now instead of y, we put in negative 1. So x equals 14 plus 2 times negative 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, and 14 minus 2 is 12. So we get the answer that x is 12. So our two answers are y equals negative 1 and x equals 12. And to put that as a point, it would be the point 12, negative 1, because x then y. And remember, if we take our x equals 12 and y equals negative 1 and plug them back into each of these equations, we can find out whether or not we're right. And if we end up with a number equaling itself, so on this side we should have 14 equals 14 and then 9 equals 9, then we did it right. So you can always check your work and you can guarantee yourself 100. Now let's look at this next problem. So in this case, notice each variable has a number in front except this y right here. So when you're looking to figure out which variable you want to solve for and in which equation, you can pick any four of these. You can pick the x in the first equation, the x in the second equation, the y in the first equation, or the y in the second equation. It doesn't matter which one you try to start for first, except for matter of difficulty. So if you try any one of these, you're then going to have to divide everything in the equation by the number in front of the variable. So you'd have to divide everything by 4 here, divide everything by 2 here, or divide everything by 3 here. The problem with that is you get fractions, and I know how everyone loves fractions. So, in order to make things easier for yourself, it's best if you go with the one that doesn't have anything in front of it. It does have a minus, so we will have to deal with that negative, but there's no number, so we won't have to deal with any fractions. So that means we have to start by rewriting the first equation. 4x minus y equals 10. Then we need to get y by itself. There are a couple different ways to do this, but the way I'd use is subtract 4x from both sides. So you say 4x minus y minus 4x equals 10 minus 4x. So then on the left, the 4x is canceled to leave just negative y. Make sure that negative stays there. And then you have equals 10 minus 4x. Now, since we have the negative y here, we're not trying to solve for negative y, we're trying to solve for y. So to get rid of this negative, we have to divide everything in the equation by -1. So divide everything by -1. So on the left side, the negatives cancel to leave y. On the right side, we've got -10 and then plus 4x, because the negative and the negative cancel out here to make this a plus. So the minus turns into a plus. By the way, just for a note, the other way you could do it is add y to both sides and then subtract 10 from both sides. Either way that you wish to do is perfectly fine. So now that you solved for y, put it in the box. Because remember, that's important. So now we want to take this and plug it in for y in the equation that we didn't use. So we want to plug it back into here. So we rewrite the equation, but instead of y, we write -10 plus 4x. So we say 2x plus 3, and now instead of y, in parentheses, we need to write -10 plus 4x. And then finish the equation equals 12. Now, once again, I'm going to move to the upper right-hand corner. So we've still got the 2x, and then notice we have to use the distributive property here. So we've got 3 times -10 is a -30. And 3 times 4x is going to be 12x. So a positive 12x plus 12x, and then that still all equals 12. Now we combine like terms here, the 2x and the 12x combine to give us 14x. Minus 30 equals 12. Then we need to add 30 to both sides. So 14x minus 30 plus 30 equals 12 plus 30. Combine like terms again, we'll get 14x equals 42. Then divide both sides by 14. And that gives us x equals 3. So now that we've got x equals 3, we can go back and plug it back into the important equation where we had already solved for y. So we rewrite the equation, y equals -10 plus 4, and instead of x, we can say 3. So we have y equals -10 plus 4 times 3 is 12, so y equals -10 plus 12 is 2. So we have x equals 3, y equals 2, and to put that as a point, we can say the point 3, 2. And remember, you can go back, plug 3 and 2 back into both of the original equations, and if they equal the same number, then you did the problem correctly. Alright, that's it for this lesson today. Once again, please make sure you took notes on the entire lesson. And right now, take a picture of your notes, submit them to your backpack. Please don't wait until class. Do it now. Have a good night.